What's up? What's up? Welcome in. I'm Jason Priester, allClemsonTigers.com, part of the Clemson Maven multimedia platform covering all things Clemson athletics. Before we get started, take a minute, remind everybody, like the video, subscribe to the channel. Here every Monday night, 7 o'clock. I usually try to answer every question I can get to. And like last week, I imagine this is going to be wall-to-wall recruiting. So don't forget, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. I know most of you are recruiting gurus, such as, I used to be into recruiting big time years ago. And then I kind of got away from it a little bit. And then after I got to doing this stuff, for living, I kind of got back into it and kind of got tabbed as the recruiting guy here at the site, and it's kind of taken off from there. And I gotta say, man, I kind of rather enjoy it again. It can be it can be frustrating at times, but overall, man, I love covering the recruiting side of it. A lot of people don't. A lot of people would rather not mess with the recruiting stuff, and I get it. I understand why, but I like it, man. I get to, for example, man, I was at Dabo Swinney's high school camps this weekend. There was a earlier session week before last, and they wrapped it up with 3 more sessions this weekend, 2 on Friday, 2 on Saturday, and an early one on Sunday. It was like a 3-day camp. It's gotten to be one of my favorite things to cover. We're not supposed to talk to the players or anything like that. That's kind of against the rules, but you get to mingle with the parents, you get to talk to the parents, and you find out some interesting things, and you make those connections and kind of build off of that. And you never know who Clemson might offer in the future, man. And I don't know. It's just one of my favorite things to cover. A lot of good players rolled through there. Most of them won't ever see Clemson offers. Like, man, probably one of the best quarterbacks I saw all weekend was Riley Scruggs. He's going to play at Dorman this year. Doesn't even have a Power 5 offer. He was going head to head with Antoine Hill Jr. And he looked every bit as good as Antoine Hill. I mean, the kid can spin it. Absolutely impressed the coaching staff. I know that he's a 2024 guy, but I'm gonna have a story with him in the next day or two. But you just never know with some of these kids, man. He's a very fascinating tale. I mean, just not everybody gets discovered. It's just kind of hit or miss with some of these kids, man. He was impressive. It's hard to believe he's got no Power 5 hours. If I'm thinking off the top of my head, he's only got 2 total, and I can't even remember where they were, but they were smaller schools, and I just couldn't believe it when he told me, because he just looked that good. Speaking of Antoine Hill, that's kind of where I'll start off. 2025 guy. Clemson's already handed out 2 quarterback offers, Blake Aber and George McIntyre. McIntyre worked out at the first session of the camps, the week before last. I think it was the week before last. My days are starting to run together, but I've been on the road so much. But he was there during those first couple sessions, and man, he's really good too. But I was interested to see if Hill was going to come away with the offer, because he was very sharp, man. He's very athletic. He's big. He threw the ball much better than I was expecting him to throw it. He doesn't look – if you watch some of his film, he doesn't look like he's as polished of a passer as he looked in person. He threw the ball really well. All of it, I mean, not saying he hit on 100% accuracy or anything, man, but he was really good. I was legit wondering if he was going to come away with an offer, and he didn't. So it looks like Clemson's going to stick to those 2 guys for right now and then go from there. It'll be interesting to see if they circle back to Hill, because he's a big guy, man. He stands out. I want to say 6'4", 6'5". He is a big dude, and he moves really well. Dual threat guy. All right. As for 2024 quarterbacks, and then I will roll into the questions. I'm I don't think Clemson's going to take one, man. I already see I'm getting the DJ Lagway questions. We'll see what happens. I have not heard one thing about Clemson getting back in on DJ Lagway. I mean, I'm not saying it's out of the realm of possibility. Stranger things have happened. I have not heard one peep about that. First thing that would have to happen would he'd have to decommit. First and foremost, he's going to have to decommit and we'll see if Clemson would get back in on him. I think that's a door he'd have to open. I think that's a process he'd have to initiate. Clemson's kind of closed that door. But if he were to decommit and open things back up and kind of open that line of communication back up with the coaching staff, I don't know how it'd play out. But I think all those things would have to happen first before we even start having that conversation. I know Florida's just lost another big-time commitment. We'll see if Lagway's the next one. He looks like he is still recruiting hard for those guys. So we'll see if he ends up decommitting, how it plays out. Florida looks like kind of a dumpster fire right now. It wouldn't shock me if he opened things back up. But, there was a lot of talk about that being a business decision for Lagway. So, who knows how that thing's going to work out. But right now, I don't think there's any fire to the smoke with Lagway and Clemson. I haven't heard one peep about anything. Again, first thing would have to happen, he's got to decommit. Second thing's got to happen, he's going to have to, open that door and reach out to Clemson because they're not going to recruit him while he's still committed. I think as we sit here today, they've kind of moved on to 2025. And if they absolutely need a quarterback, an extra arm or something, you can always go get a graduate transfer from the portal for a year and focus your efforts on 2025 and not taking one in 2024. I think that helps you land a bigger name guy in 2025. Whole lot of wasted excitement about Lagway. It might turn out to be that way because I don't think there's anything here right now anyways. A month from now, 2 months from now, if he were to decommit and open it back up, who knows, man? All bets are off after that. I think it is something he would have to initiate, though. That's just kind of been the standard. And I don't see them deviating from that. How is stuff with Edric Houston after Georgia? Mike Matthews, he was in Georgia this weekend. Houston is a guy that I've never had a conversation with. So I went back this week and I dug over some quotes of his, and I found something that I had not found before. He's not very interested in playing in a 3-4. Doesn't sound like it. So to me, that hurts Georgia. Maybe Clemson's biggest competition here is Ohio State because he's still got visits to Ohio State. He's still got visits to Alabama. Alabama plays a lot of 3-man fronts too. So if he wants to play in a 4-man front, we talking Clemson, we talking Ohio State. The names kind of changed for me a little bit, but I still say the same thing. Clemson's in this thing, man, and more so than some people would like to admit. I think they have a very realistic shot at winning out in the end. The way they put defensive linemen in the league is something he's talked about on more than one occasion, resonates with him. I just think they are in this thing, and it might be coming down to Clemson, Ohio State, rather than Clemson and Georgia. For a while, I just kind of assumed it was a Georgia. It's going to be Clemson, Georgia, maybe Ohio State because he's from Georgia. But I dug through a lot of his old interviews in the past week, and he does not sound very interested in playing in a 3-4. So, I think that hurts Georgia. I think we might be looking at a Clemson-Ohio State battle more so than anything once he gets down to it. As for Mike Matthews, he had that interesting tweet over the weekend. And if you are a pessimistic type person, you look at that tweet and you read it, and I can't remember exactly how it was worded, but it was worded in a way that kind of made it sound like, hey, Clemson, thanks, but no thanks. If you're the optimistic type of person, you're on the other side saying, hey, man, this guy's on an official at Athens, and he's tweeting about his official to Clemson. Something's got to be up there. depends on which side of the spectrum you fall on here. I don't know about that tweet. It was very cryptic, I thought. Still think this thing's coming down to Clemson and Tennessee. I'm not saying Georgia's not in it. I think Tennessee's the biggest threat to Clemson. And like Houston, I think Clemson's very much still in it with Matthews. I know there's been a lot of talk about wide receiver numbers. Mike Matthews absolutely still a take. Make no mistake. Clemson's got their 2 receivers, but they would take Mike Matthews. If they got to sign him as an athlete, so be it. That's what they'll do. One way or another, I still think we get the 3 wide receivers, whether that's Matthews as an athlete or adding somebody later down the road. I think we get the 3 somehow. But I think Clemson's very much in it for Mike Matthews. But just like Houston, and just like a lot of these guys, man, that were here last weekend for the official visit weekend, they're not ready to shut it down. They're going to take more visits. Just going to have to let them see how they play out. And with a lot of these guys, they tend to ride that wave of emotion coming off that visit. So take what they say the day of a visit, the day after a visit. I take that stuff with a grain of salt. Give it 3-4 days. Let that emotion settle down and hear what they say after that. Gives you a better idea. Mike Matthews, I still think is coming down Clemson, Tennessee. And for Houston, I think Clemson's very much in it, as much as they ever been. Like I've said it before, man, there's something that keeps bringing Houston back, man. He's been Clemson several times over the past, 9-10 months. If you go back to the start of last season, however long that's been, less than a year. But there's something that keeps bringing him back. There's something that really resonates with him. And I know one of those things is the way Clemson develops their defensive linemen and their track record of putting them into the league. That speaks volumes to these defensive linemen. What's up with Matthews tweeting out while on visit? Is Clemson the leader? See, that's what I'm talking about. It depends on which side of the spectrum you fall on. After he tweeted that thing out, man, my phone blew up. Man, does that mean Matthews is done? Is Clemson done with Matthews, or is Matthews done with Clemson? I don't know, man. I don't know what he meant by that tweet. I don't think he's done with Clemson, though. I'll put it that way. Again, I think Clemson's very much in it. Very cryptic tweet. Make no mistake. Some of these recruits like to have fun with the fans, and maybe that's what he was doing. Not saying that's what he was doing, but maybe it is. I find it myself personally, I find it very interesting that he was tweeting about the Clemson official visit while on a visit to Athens. That's kind of how I looked at it. Regardless of how it was worded, that's the way I looked at it. You're tweeting about a prior visit while on a current visit. What's up with Houston getting a crystal ball to Ohio State? Has not visited them yet till this weekend. I don't know who I don't pay much attention to crystal balls. I had somebody tell me the other day that Corey and Gibson had been crystal balled to Texas. And I actually looked, and there's no crystal balls at 24/7 in for Corey and Gibson to Texas. I don't think anybody else does crystal balls. So maybe he was talking about another site. I'm not sure. But he said crystal balls. But I don't know, man. Those things are projections. I don't know who put it in. If Wilt Farm put it in, I might pay some attention to it. Other than that, I don't know. Hold on a minute. I can look it up. Let's see who put it in. Oh, it was Wilt Fong. Look at there. Wilt Fong put one in. That's one you pay attention to, man. It ain't over for Edric Houston, though. Does Clemson want McIntyre as a priority over Hill? Yeah. I think it speaks volumes that Hill didn't leave with an offer. That's what he came down there for. I got to talk to his dad for a few minutes. They came down there, wanting to earn an offer, and one did not come. I have not I've tried to touch base with Antoine since they left, and I have not been able to yet. But his dad told me that if they didn't get one, that they'd remain patient and they'd move on and keep working. But yeah, I think Aber and McIntyre are the two guys right now. I think it speaks volumes that Hill didn't pick up an offer while he was here this weekend. And again, man, he looked really good. I mean, not perfect by any stretch, but he looked really good. Is Corian Gibson getting pulled hard by Texas? Yeah, I think Corian Gibson's getting pulled hard by Texas. I wouldn't discount Ohio State here either. He's still got a visit scheduled with them. Gibson had a visit scheduled for Alabama this weekend, canceled it. But as of now, he's not canceled the rest of those visits. Still got one with Texas, still got one with Ohio State. Texas kind of always been lurking there. He is a Texas. He's from Texas. But again, don't discount Ohio State. If they get him up there and he takes that visit, just going to have to let this thing play out. Having said all that, I think Clemson's in solid shape with Gibson. But at the same time, that there is something holding him back from pulling the trigger. So we just – I know people's going to get tired of hearing me say it. Just going to have to let some of these visits play out and see where things shake out. He's already canceled one, Gibson. We'll see if he cancels any more. Is Alex Taylor still a take at wide receiver? I asked Alex Taylor last week, was he still a take or was Clemson still an option? He said yes. Braylon Staley has said Clemson is no longer an option for him. So you got two receivers, two very different messages. I'll start out by putting it like this. If I'm Alex Taylor and I see TJ Moore is already on board at Clemson, I might be starting to look elsewhere. Two very similar receivers. TJ Moore, probably a little higher upside. And that's not – and anybody knows me knows I love Alex Taylor. I've been tooting his horn for a year now. As for whether he's a take right now, I'm not 100% sold on that. I think Clemson's going to wait on Matthews first and foremost. They're not going to do anything until Matthews makes a decision. After that, they might wait on Cam Coleman before they take another commitment from a wide receiver because I think Coleman's another guy they're not going to say no to. But Coleman's a guy that's not planning on announcing until later in the fall. So right now, I'm not sure Alex Taylor is a take in the summer. Those guys might have to do what Antonio Williams did. And it worked out for Antonio Williams. Might not work out for these two guys. They were told going into last weekend that there was two spots and it was going to be first come, first serve. So they knew it going in, and those two spots filled up over the weekend. But if you go back and remember the way Antonio Williams' recruitment played out, he had to wait a long time just to get the offer. He had to wait for that thing with Andre Green to play out before Clemson even offered him. He was offered very late in the cycle, but he stayed patient. And he got the offer he wanted, and he ended up at Clemson. If Taylor or Staley won't end up at Clemson, they might have to, put off and making decisions till later in the cycle. I don't know how this thing's going to shake out yet. I do still think we're going to get to 3. It's just a matter of how we get there. Say you miss on Matthews. Again, I think Clemson's going to wait on Coleman because I think they're very much in. I think they think they're very much in it with Coleman, and they might very well be. I would put him as the least likely of those 4 between Matthews, Taylor, Staley, and Coleman. I would put him maybe as the least likely to jump on board at this point. but that doesn't mean they're not in it. And I think they think they're in it. So I think they will wait on him. And that's a guy you don't say no to. Now, say you miss on Matthews, you miss on Coleman. I don't know. It might depend on when Coleman decides. Timing's going to have to do with a lot of this. And there's a very real possibility we get to December and they stick with 2. I just think we're going to get to 3. Somehow, some way, it's just a matter of how we get there. Now, say you land Matthews, that's it. They're done. Coleman's no longer a take. Taylor's no longer a take. And Staley's not going to be a take. I just think if those guys want on board, Taylor or Staley, they might have to just be patient now and wait to see how some things play out. Because, again, they all went into last weekend knowing 2 spots, 6 receivers, first come, first serve. You know, you snooze, you lose. Nick Eason keeps getting Houston to come back. Yeah, these kids like Nick Eason. I had a conversation with Isaiah Campbell, a 2025 defensive lineman today. Raves about Nick Eason and his coaching style. I saw, you just go out there and watch Eason coach these kids and how they respond to his coaching, and you can see it. Guys like London Merritt, had a talk with him today. He's a guy that really responds and says that track record Clemson has of putting defensive linemen into the league, man, is enticing. Houston reminds me of your current man crushes recruitment. You have to fill me in. Which man crush we talking about? I got a couple of them. One of them ain't even related to baseball. Who will be the first O lineman to jump on board? I don't know. That's a good question. I've kind of been of the opinion that the board's probably going to have to expand. If you take 3, I think the board's going to have to expand, and that's the number. Like I talked about last week, I think Clemson made big moves with Satterwhite. I think they made a big move with Westfall. But beyond that, I'm not sure. Jamison Riggs is a guy nobody knows what he's going to do. Casey Poe, Alabama's going to be a formidable opponent for him. And Michael Hooney's a guy I think I could see ending up at Clemson. And I'm missing somebody there. Who's the other one? Poe, Westfall, Hooney, Jamison Riggs. Okay, I got all. No, that's only 5. I'm missing one. But to me, if I had to pick one guy who was going to jump on board first, I would probably go with Satterwhite. Talked to him last week. Told me Clemson was at the top of his list in the top 2. At the top of his list of his top 2. He's still got a visit with Tennessee, so we're going to have to get through that and see what happens. But if I had to pick one, probably going with him. But again, I think Clemson made big moves with Westfall last week. I had a good conversation with him, and he just raved about the way Clemson handled that weekend and the stuff they do. And I think I said it last week. I might have said this on here last week that Westfall said President Clements is the only university president he gets mail from. President Clements met with them and talked with them, and that's something that just does not happen at other places. And that really hit the mark with him. But again, he was in Athens this weekend. And, they got those 2 big trophies to march out there and show those kids. And that's hardware, man, tangible hardware. Clemson's got 2 trophies too, but they're a little bit older. So we're just going to have to wait and see. But if I had to guess one, I might would guess Satterwhite. I'm thinking the board's probably going to have to expand at some point on the offensive line. We'll see. If you If you get Satterwhite, somehow gets Westfall and Uni, then you got your three guys. Because I could see Uni ending up at Clemson. He's another guy that's going to take his visits, but he just strikes me as a guy whose personality fits that Clemson culture to a T. Westfall's the same thing. And I know, I've had a couple conversations with Satterwhite. I know he loves it there. I guess no Sammy question this week. So have you heard anything on Gideon Davidson, the running back that commits Wednesday? 2025 running back. And no more Sammy Brown questions. He was actually, ran into him yesterday morning. He was there at Clemson's camp watching his little brother. Man, that's going to be a stud of a player too. He's a 2027 kid. He already resembles a senior. He was out there working with the juniors and seniors. He's going to be a good one too. The running back that commits Wednesday, he announced his commitment date a few weeks ago. Spent the weekend in Clemson. You announce your commitment date 3 days before said commitment date, you spend the weekend in Clemson. I think the writing's on the wall there. He even worked out at 2 different sessions of camp this weekend. And, man, talk about somebody look really good. He is good. He is smooth as silk. And, man, he's got hands like a receiver. He is really good. I got a feeling C.J. Spiller is going to have his running back locked up very early for the second consecutive class. Think we may see a wide receiver or 2 leave after this season. See, that's part of what I'm talking about. Kids having to be patient. If I'm not mistaken, there's only one wide receiver set to leave after the season, Spector. I guess Bo Collins could always forego his senior season and leave, but there's only one scheduled to come off the books. Yeah, I'd have to go back and look. But I think that's the case. They plan on moving Tink Kelly from receiver to DB. I imagine that's a move that'll take place after this season. So there's your 2 spots. Or that's what I'm thinking is the 2 spots anyways. I'd have to go back and look again. I can't think of anybody else coming off right off the top of my head. But you never know. It's Will Taylor's money year in baseball. He could decide that after this year he's done. Maybe he plays this year, and I could easily see him not playing football in 2024. I can easily see a receiver bolting, a la E.J. Williams did last year. You just never know. I just think we're going to get to 3. It's just a matter of how we get there. Maybe somebody bolts in the season. Maybe somebody bolts. I don't know. I just think we're going to get to 3 somehow, some way. And maybe that's signing Matthews as an athlete, or maybe it's a late take. I don't know. I think we're going to get to 3. Again, I asked Alex Taylor the same day that Braylon Staley came out and said Clemson was no longer an option for him. I reached out to Alex Taylor. I said, Clemson's still an option for you? He said, yes, sir, still an option. And very much interested. So, again, two different receivers, 2 very different messages. No, Houston does not have it. Is Edric Houston making another visit to Clemson? No, Houston does not have another visit scheduled. He was here last weekend. He was in Clemson, I want to say, for 3 games last season. It was definitely 2. I want to say he was here for 3. I can't remember for sure. It was 2 or either 3. But I definitely know it was. I remember it being 2. He's been back 2 or either 3 times in the offseason. Want to say he did a spring visit, the official visit weekend, and the big junior day earlier in the year. I'm trying to remember this off the top of my head. So again, there's something that keeps bringing him back. No future visit schedule right now. He's just taking he's taking these official visits: Clemson, Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State. Might be one more in there. And then he's planning on announcing a decision in August. So these official visits will wrap up his visits and he'll be done. So no more visits to Clemson. When I say something keeps bringing him back, I mean something has kept bringing him back over the past 9 or 10 months. And when usually guys that visit that often, more often than not, they tend to end up in Clemson. Not every time. I mean, there are exceptions. Don't get me wrong. But more often than not, you see those guys eventually commit to Clemson. Yeah, you like my hat? I got a new hat, man. You'll probably notice I always wear the same hat every week. Every week. It's because I wear the same hat every day, man. It's like part of my wardrobe. My boss got me a new hat while we were in Clemson for the regional. So now I got two I can go back and forth with. Ronan O'Connell, that's the guy. No, he wasn't here for the official visit weekend, was he? Or was he? I know I am missing one. Might have been him. Okay, yeah. Him. Yeah. He's the one I'm missing. I'm getting him confused with the one that just recently committed to there was one that's got a Clemson offer that just recently committed. I get those two confused sometimes. Do you think any more linebackers are coming? Now, Clemson's done at linebacker. Well, you know what? Let me take that back. I take that back. They got two on board. Drew Woodaz and Sammy Brown. Clemson extended another linebacker offer just before the official visit weekend. Wyatt Simmons, 3-star kid they really like. He would absolutely be a take. We'll have to see if they can get him to the All-In Cookout and see what happens. Auburn's kind of considered the favorite right now, if I'm not mistaken. So they got some work to do if they're going to land him. Two's kind of thought the number is thought to have been 2. Looks like for the right guy, they would stretch it to 3, though. So we'll see. But he's definitely a take if he's interested in coming. So they might not be done at linebacker. They might be. It just depends on what happens with that kid. Do you think we will get Mike Matthews? Okay, I touched on Matthews at the top, and I'll go back over it real quickly here for those who missed it. Matthews visited Clemson. He visited Athens this weekend. Still got visits to Tennessee and Southern Cal and somewhere else, if I'm not mistaken. But Tennessee's the visit. Tennessee's the visit to keep your eye on. While he was in Athens this weekend, he tweeted out about Clemson's official visit weekend. There's two ways to look at that. The way that thing was worded, you can kind of read it and say, well, he's thanking Clemson for the opportunity, and he's no longer considering them. Or you can see it as, hey man, he's tweeting out about Clemson's official visit while he's on a visit to Athens. Why would he do that? Two ways to look at that thing. I think Clemson's very much in it for Mike Matthews still. I think it's going to come down to Clemson and Tennessee. And I think Clemson is more in it than a lot of these national guys are letting on or are aware of. I think Clemson's very much in it. So you're going to have to let him take his visits, though, and see how they shake out. I can't tell you he's leaning this way or leaning that way because I don't know. I'm not inside his head. I don't know him personally. So it's just one of those deals. It's like so many of these other kids. I know people's gonna, like I said, you're gonna get sick of hearing me say it. But you gotta let them take their visits and see how the things shake out. Yeah, I touched on Cam Coleman earlier too. Of the four guys still out there with offers that are uncommitted, Staley, Taylor, Coleman, Matthews, I would say Coleman's the least likely to jump on board. But that doesn't mean that they're not in it. I think they're in it. I'm just not sure how much. He's a guy that's not going to decide until later in the fall, it appears. If he sticks to that timeline, that might help with some of these other guys like Taylor or Staley if Clemson wants to circle back to those guys. You land Mike Matthews, that's it. I think you're done. I don't think Coleman's a take anymore. But if you miss on Matthews, I think Coleman's absolutely still a take. Clemson still thinks they're in it. I still think they're in it. I just don't know how much they're in it. We'll see. But, yeah, if you're asking me if they got a shot, yeah, they got a shot. Absolutely. You got a shot. Mike Matthews commits, though. I think that's it. Anything new on Ricardo Jones? I would just say, as far as Jones is concerned, any future visits he's got scheduled, don't expect them to take place. I don't think they're going to happen. Oh, come on, man. You opening Pandora's box there. What position is Jeff Scott coaching? He was coaching the young wide receivers this weekend. Jeff Scott was at all 3 days of camp this weekend volunteering. He's a volunteer coach. Got some of the message boards fired up, I'm sure. As of right now, no, he's not on the staff. Will he be come September, August, whatever? I'm not a fortune teller. I have no idea. I mean, there are no openings on the staff as far as on-field assistants right now, so we know the answer to that part. As far as being an analyst, I have no idea. That might be up to him. We shall see. Is Mayo off the table anymore? No, I don't think Darian Mayo is off the table. Clemson needs two defensive ends. They don't have one yet. So you would absolutely you're taking Houston and Mayo. Penn State's considered the biggest competition. And there are a lot of people out there that think he's a heavy, or is it Penn State or Michigan? I really need to start taking notes on these things. I think it's Penn State or Michigan, one of the two, that thinks he's a lean to that school. I'm not sure that lean is as strong as some people are making it out to be. We'll see. I know he really enjoyed his Clemson visit. There's a lot of things he likes about Clemson. Mayo's one of those guys with me, though. It's hard to get a good read on. He's one of the few in this class I've never spoke with, or one of the few targets in this class that I've never spoke with, so it's hard to get a good read on him. But I don't. Yeah, he's definitely on the table for sure. Make no mistake. Just kind of let him take those visits, see what happens. I'm trying to see if I missed anything. Yeah, I've talked about Corey Gibson a little while ago. He's another guy he's hard to get a good read on. You know, the timeline changes. He's a guy I thought could commit, but during the spring game didn't commit. I thought he's a guy that might have come in last weekend and shut it down. He did cancel his visit to Alabama this weekend. We'll see if he cancels the other ones. Still got to go to Texas. Still got to go to Ohio State. Texas always kind of been lurking there. The kids from Texas. Don't discount Ohio State. I think when the dust settles, though, Dad Gibson's going to be a part of this class. Whether he shuts it down right now or not, I think when the dust settles, Gibson's going to be a part of the class. And Clemson's already got one corner on board. They're only looking for one more. All right. Whew. We got a Jude Lewis question. I think Juju Lewis is one of those kids. It's a small number, but I think he's one of those kids to where not offering until the beginning of their junior year hurts. Touch base with Juju going into the spring, ask him was he going to stop by Clemson this spring because he did a lot of visits. Flat out said no, man. He can only focus on the schools he's got offers from, and Clemson's not even going to start offering these kids for another year. So I think that kind of hurts you a little bit with Juju. And depending on who you land in 2025, that could hurt you with Juju. Juju's a kid that's he ain't going to sit behind nobody. And if he goes to sit, it ain't going to be before a year. He ain't coming to sit for a couple of years behind so-and-so or so-and-so. A long ways to go with Juju. I did lay eyes on this kid from Georgia at camp this weekend. CJ CJ Britt. He's a 2026 kid, quarterback from Georgia, but he's got numbers that are similar to Juju's, and this is a kid that wants to come to Clemson and go nowhere else. We'll have to see what he does on the field the next 2 years, but he's got the same high school coach as Deshaun Watson. He's only the second freshman that high school coach has ever started. Watson was the first. Just a name to file away and see what happens. But going back to Lewis, I think that's one of the few kids that it hurts you when you don't offer them until they're right before the start of their junior seasons, because he blew up so quick, and everybody's going to have been in on him for a year. Just because Clemson hasn't offered him doesn't mean they won't be recruiting him. Clemson recruits a lot of kids that don't have offers. You can recruit them just as hard, even when they don't have offers. But they got that policy, and it hurts them with some kids, and Juju might be one of those guys. That's just a feeling I get. It's not been said publicly anywhere. Nobody's told me that. It's just a feeling I get. David Sanders Jr., the top offensive lineman in the country in 2025. I think Clemson's, I think they're positioned about as well as they could be for where we are in the cycle. That's about all I can say. That everybody's going to be after him. Everybody wants him. And we got a long way to go with him. But yeah, I think they position themselves well. '25 defensive lineman Amari Adams from Lake City. How do things stand with him? He was here for that first session of Camp 2, the last day. Didn't work out, just was at Clemson for a visit. That was the day he got his offer. He's actually not playing in Lake City this year. He's transferring to South Florence, play for the reigning state champs. But just thought that was worthy of note. We'll have to see on him, man. I don't know. That's one that's just got South Carolina written all over it, in my opinion. Don't mean things can't change. I've kind of always had him leaning that way. I think he grew up a South Carolina fan and all that good stuff. And when you're competing against that kind of ingrained loyalty, it's kind of hard to win them over. And I get it. I wouldn't want to go to the school I grew up hating either. So, but you never know, man. We've seen Gamecock fans come to Clemson before, and kids that grew up Clemson fans end up in South Carolina. Just another one. He's going to be one of the most sought after guys in the class. Maybe that track record Clemson has of pumping guys into the league, especially at defensive tackle, maybe that's enough to give them a realistic shot and get them over that fandom. Let's see. Yeah, I see the baseball questions. I'm trying to get to all the football stuff first. All right, I think I got them all. If I missed it, ask it again. Oh, here we go. Expect any of the late enrollees on the defensive side to have an immediate impact or fight for playing time this year. Watch out for AJ Hoffler. I think he's a kid that can come in and compete for playing time. Saw him over the weekend. He already looks the part physically. Out there helping coach, and he looked like a natural. Clemson is kind of thin at end. I think Hoffler's a guy that could come in and contribute right away. So if I had to go with one guy off the defensive side of the ball, I'm going with him. George McIntyre, I touched on him at the top. One of only two kids with the Clemson offer, quarterback in 2025. He's kind of like Sanders, kind of like Adams. He's going to be one of the most sought after quarterbacks in the class. He's already said he wants to get back to Clemson for a game in the fall. We got a long way to go with these 2025 guys, but realistic shot, absolutely. Hey, here's a great segue before I get into baseball. I was going to do it at the end, but June 28th, Dockside, Clemson Boulevard. We're going to be doing a big recruiting show. We welcome everybody to come out, join us on location. We would much rather see you in person instead of staring at the keyboard. June 28th, Dockside. I think it's 894 Clemson Boulevard. And we're going to do it upright. We'll put out some more details in the next week or so, but it's just a couple weeks away. We will all be there, including my ugly mug. So come on out and join in the fun. June 28th. Yeah, TJ Parker is going to be a contributor this year, but he was an early enrollee. I was talking about summer enrollees. TJ Parker, man, he was out there coaching this weekend too. He looks like a guy. He looks like a guy that's already been in the program for a couple of years. He does not look like a freshman. None of those guys do. None of them look like freshmen, man. It is just it's eye popping to see some of those guys. The All In Cookout. It's going to be expected to be in late July. No specific date on that yet, not that I'm aware of, but expect it'll be in late July. All right. I know baseball is over, but any words about commits going into Major League Baseball draft? There's one right off the top of my head. I have not dug a lot into this. I'm supposed to write a story looking ahead to next year for baseball. I've been so busy with recruiting that I've not been able to do it yet. Let's see here. Dylan Head might be the one at the top of the list. Outfielder from Illinois. It wouldn't shock me if he never got to campus. Jaron Purify, he's one to watch. Middle infielder. Clemson's losing both their middle infielders. That's a guy Clemson needs on campus. You lose him, that one's going to be felt. Those are the two guys off the top of my head. Yeah, I absolutely think Grice is going to be gone. I'm not sold on Engel being gone. I think there's a good chance he's going to be back. We'll see, though. Nothing set in stone. Zach will be glad to sign your book. Come on out, June 28th. Do I think someone's going to commit during the all-in cookout? We'll have to see what happens between now and then. Used to be the all-in cookout was the big recruiting event of the summer. That kind of changed last year when Clemson had that big official visit weekend, that first weekend in June. That kind of turned into the big recruiting event. And the all-in cookout last year ended up being mostly a bunch of guys that were already committed. So we're going to have to see what happens between now and mid-July, end of July. If you still got a bunch of uncommitted targets on board, that's going to be a big deal. If you've locked up a bunch of these guys by then maybe it's not quite as big of a deal. But if you go in and you still got a bunch of uncommitted guys going into that thing, sure. I mean, why not? We already saw Clemson come out of this official visit weekend with 3. Wow. Stands to reason they'd be able to land one during that cookout because they roll out the red carpet again for these guys. When do the late enrollees arrive on campus? Yeah, AJ Hoffer was already there this weekend, but officially, it'll be before fall camp, so it'll be late July, probably. I don't have the exact date. Late July is what I'm thinking. Sometime around that last week in July, maybe the very beginning of August, but I'm thinking late July. By the end of the month, maybe not by the end of the month, but I think there will be. I think 8's the number we start at with guys that were there this weekend. Whether they jump on board by the end of the month, I don't know, because most of them's going to follow through with their visits, and that might roll into July, while they make a decision. But yeah, I still think the number's 8. I think that's where we start. We already got 3 on board. I'm pretty confident in a 4th. So it's only 4 more. I think the number's going to start with 8. I think in total last year you ended up with 14 off that weekend. And there were a good bit fewer guys this year, uncommitted guys. So 8 sounds like a good starting point for me. So, yeah, I'm sticking with that 8. Maybe not quite by the end of June, but maybe by the time we get to the end of July, 8 from this thing. Yeah. Zach says he will absolutely be glad to sign your book, but you bring it knowing that it's going to lose any and all value that it has once he puts his signature on it. What's the target number for the 2024 class? I got it somewhere between 22 and 24 right now. That's kind of where I think it's going to fall. 22 and 24. We'll see if it gets past that, but I think we're at least at 22 and probably no higher than 24. But you never know, man, with the portal these days, that number could grow. I got it at 22, 24, somewhere right in that range. Who are you most excited for, Wesco or Moore? That's hard to answer because they're two very different kind of receivers. And I think to be successful, you have to have a wide receiver room filled with variety, so to speak. You need your burners, you need your possession guys, you need your smaller guys that can make guys miss and rack up yards after the catch. I think Moore is a big time get. When Clemson first got in on him, I didn't give him much of a shot at landing him. It kind of had an Ohio State feel to it. But the further you get into that thing, man, you see Clemson's got a shot. Even after he starts calling Florida the favorite, you know Clemson's right there, and they're going to get him back on campus. But anyways, I love both these guys. Wesco's the burner, though, man. He brings something that some of these other guys don't, and that is elite level, legitimate speed, and he's got it. And I think the wide receiver room has been lacking in speed of late, regardless of the reason why. There's not been a lot of speed on the field. I know Troy Stellato is a fast guy. I know Adam Randall can move pretty well. But they've been hurt. We've not seen it. The receiver rooms lack speed. And I think it needs more of that speed. So if I got to pick one to like better, I'm going with Wesco. But I love TJ Moore too. I mean, he's physical. He might not be the burner that Wesco is, but he's got plenty enough speed. He knows how to use his hands and his route running to create separation. There's just a lot to like about both those guys, and they bring a whole new dynamic to that receiver room. Let's say Clemson ends up being just taking Moore in Wesco. Going into this recruiting cycle, if somebody says, hey, man, you're only going to take two, but it's going to be TJ Moore and Bryant Wesco, I don't think anybody's passing that up. I don't think anybody's passing that up. I'd love to see the number get to 3. Still think we get to 3. But if you stick at 2 and it's these two guys, you got to love these two guys, man. Do I think Moore would be able to get a 5th star? Very, very unlikely. I don't pay much attention to the rankings. I'm having to look up where he's actually ranked right this second. It tells you how much I keep up with them. Let's see. In the composite, he's number 157 overall. 24/7's got him 83 overall. Oh, yeah, he's a long ways off. Let's see what he is at Rivals. At Rivals, he's not even in the top 200. So you got to be in that top, 36 to get 5-star. I don't think there ain't no way he's going to shoot that high up. And make no mistake, man, those star ratings, they're a good gauge. They're not the be-all, end-all. There's a lot of politics involved. Peter Woods got dinged right before early signing day last year for having short arms. Dude's arms definitely didn't shrink. They were always that size. All of a sudden, right before signing day, you ding him, knock him down to 4-star, give an uncommitted guy that 5th star he didn't have. It's a way to bring in new subscribers, man. Period. And it's the nature of this business. Good chance Ajamame gets another star that he'll likely be the top running back. I think he's already a 4-star, isn't he? I know Rivals. Last time I looked at his rating, Rivals had him as a all-purpose back. If I'm not mistaken, had him as one of the top 5 in the country. Okay, 24/7's only got him at 3 stars. He's 4 stars in the composite. But yeah, he's not been to every down back. He's not been the starter for his school yet. There's a lot to like about this kid. And when he gets the opportunity to really show what he can do, yeah, he's absolutely possible he could get that 4-star at 24/7. But already being committed, it wouldn't shock me if he didn't. They're not gonna spend a lot of time doing a bunch of film work and breakdown on a guy that's already committed. Why do these services not guys who come to Clemson after they commit? I don't think it's got anything to do with where he went to school. I mean, I think he was just a guy that they could ding and give it to another guy and try to bring in new subscribers. I don't think it had anything to do with him going to Clemson. You know, he's a guy that had been committed for a long time. He didn't just commit. There's no when you got a guy like that that's been committed for months. There's nothing new to write about. There's no new content to put out on that guy. You know, you give another guy that 5th star, and you can create some new content around that guy. And the early signing period, right before the early signing period, I'm going to go out on a limb and guess that's probably the biggest time of the year for those paid recruiting sites. And bringing in subscribers is one of the biggest objectives. But, man, I'm not saying that the star rating systems, you know, there's no value in it, because I think there is. I just think it's got some flaws. But no system like that is run by human beings is going to be perfect anyways. There's always going to be biases. But I do think there gets to be some politics involved sometimes, you know, including which camps kid goes and participates in. Does he participate in the rivals camps or the Nike's camps and so on? And I just think there are a lot of things involved. Rivals has Sammy Brown a full 4-star, Coleman as a 3-star. See, I didn't even know that. That just shows you how much attention I pay to star ratings. If you see me reference star ratings, I'm always going to use the composite, because it takes into account all the ratings. So when I do use them, it's going to be the composite. You know, that's as less flawed as you can get. That's the least flawed of the bunch, in my opinion, because you're taking them all into account. You're taking everybody's biases and all the politics from all the sites into account. Both Vizina and Woods got dinged after they committed. Just seemed odd. I think Vizina ended up about right where he should have been. So we'll see. Hey, we got a guest.
Oh, shoot. Hang on.
Did I get you before you were ready?
Oh, shoot. Let's see. Hang on.
Zach sitting in the dark.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I was just, coming in here just to supervise a little and see how the chat was going. But yeah, great show.
Yeah, the chat's been going longer than an hour. I haven't even eaten yet. That's the way I like them. That's the way I like them, though.
Yeah. Lots of great recruiting talk, everything tonight.
Man, it says, there you go, the legend.
Yeah, that's fun. Yeah.
All right, everybody. Do not forget June 28th, Dockside.
Yeah, it's gonna be a blast. We're gonna have some great stuff, some giveaways. So, all of us will be there. So come out, and hang with us. So, yeah, it's gonna be a blast.
You do have to look at our ugly mugs, but other than that, there's no downside.
Yeah, it's free. I mean, you'll get your money's worth. So, you can't go wrong.
June 28th, Dockside. Don't forget, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Got a lot more recruiting stuff coming up this week on the site, allclemsontigers.com. I got about, 7, 8, 9 more interviews I got to write up. So be on the lookout from those. A bunch of 2025 guys that already got offers. Allclemsontigers.com. Appreciate all y'all tuning in. Appreciate Zach joining us for the last minute or two. See y'all next Monday.
Yes, sir.